Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 22nd of March work session. We have quite an active agenda for you today. Shall begin. Well, first I should ask my colleague, do we have any deviations from the agenda?
No, not from that. I do have a miscellaneous, but
Okay.
that's,
We'll get to them in
Yeah.
order.
yeah.
So let me welcome our Public Works, our Public Services Director, and he will introduce to us a presentation by the Humane Society.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mike Moss, Public Services Director. A few weeks ago, I presented to the board there's going to be an opportunity for Humane Society to come in front of us to discuss the new contract for 2023. Mr. Darren Ullman is now the Executive Director at the Humane Society. I believe he's already presented to the 4 cities. And he's here today to present also to you guys. We're going to talk about the contract after that fact, or if you wanted to do that next week in executive session to talk about the negotiations of that contract, we can certainly do it at that point. But today, Darren will present you the program. He's presenting it from the Humane Society, and ask him as many questions as you like. Thank you.
Thank you. You there and Mike there. Don't forget to grab the
All right, well, good afternoon. My name is Darren Ullman. I'm the Executive Director of the Humane Society. I believe are we just doing the PowerPoint by the printouts, or do we have it on the screen? Okay. So what I'm here for is to really give you just a background on what the Humane Society has been doing the past year, and just kind of update you on where we're at and where we're going in the future. So,
excuse me, just to make sure, is the green light on?
yes.
Okay, we're good. And sometimes I get people saying they can't hear well. So as you notice, I speak pretty closely into the microphone.
Okay. Is that better?
Much better. Thank you.
Okay. So can I forward this or slides? Okay. So this is our mission statement to promote the humane treatment of animals through education, advocacy, and services. This has been our mission for many years now. This is actually the 50th anniversary of the Humane Society. They were formed in 1973, and we've been going strong ever since. We've actually been contracting with the county and the cities since 1974, providing animal control services and shelter services for the community. And we're still very excited to be doing that today. Go to the next slide. So this is just a general statistics on pets in America right now. This is coming from the ASPCA, and they are saying that there are approximately about 70% of US households contain a pet. If it's any of those households are like mine, I have 9 pets in my house. Not my choice, but it gives you an idea that there's probably more than just that many. Since Cowles County's population has climbed to about 111,000, that puts about 78,000 households within our community with pets. So pets still will remain a very large number of.
Yeah, that's probably not 78,000 households.
I'm just going by the statistics that were provided by the
No,
ASPCA.
the population's 114,000, and you think we have 78,000 households?
I
Average
just
3 persons per household, 2, that still drops us down into 55,000 or something like that.
okay, fair enough.
And then we took a percentage of that.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Either way, there's a lot of pets in our
A
community.
lot of pets.
And that's what I'm really trying to display. As you can see here, there's this short graph just basically, or this table just basically describes where most pet ownership is coming from. The shelters and the Humane Society is a big piece of it, mainly for cats. Breeders still top dogs, but for the most part, the shelters are a big part of where a lot of people are getting their pets, which is a good thing because we want to see that with the animal turnover that we have today. So we can go to the next slide.
Question on that one, the difference between a breeder and a private party is that the breeder is officially in business.
Correct. Yeah, they are in business probably breeding one specific breed, where a private party could be someone, their dog had puppies.
Yeah,
So they're selling the puppies. So here's some organizational totals from 2022, and this information can be found at animalsheltercount.com or shelteranimalcount.org. But this is a database that we input into. It's a national database, and this is just showing our numbers of live intakes versus live outcomes. The live intakes are basically animals that came into our shelter. This is basically the number of animals that we touched in 2022. So that number, the 3,065, is the total number that came into the shelter in 2022. The outcomes are the ones that are adopted, they're returned to the owner, or they're transferred to another facility. And many times we'll do that primarily to give another shelter an opportunity to adopt out an animal that we may have troubles adopting out, which is the case right now for almost all the shelters. Is we're all struggling with getting animals out, and I'll explain that more in a little bit. So if we can go on to the next slide. And one more. So these are numbers of animal control calls for service in each of the jurisdictions. And since we're talking about the county right now, you can see our total complaints that came in was 1,048. And complaints, it's just, yes, sir.
On the previous slide, I wondered if you were going to go into it, so I didn't interrupt you then. I like to stay with the particular
Sure.
slide. Live outcomes suggest that you had other outcomes. Can you
Yes.
explain that?
Yes, that it's returned to owner, it's adopted, it's transferred to another agency, it's those types of things. It's
Right, no,
other
that,
than-
those are the live outcomes. I'm saying what other outcome are there in the category?
an animal being put down.
So,
be
so
another
you do
outcome.
put down animals.
We do put down animals, yes.
Yeah.
We do not put down animals just to make space in our shelter. We put down animals that there's a genuine need for them to be put down, that they are suffering, they are unadoptable, that they become just very vicious or can't train them. And usually a lot of animals that have been abused will get into that state, and it becomes really difficult to adopt those animals out. And we try what we can, we give them the benefit of the doubt, but many times we will have to put an animal down for those reasons. So these are just talking about the live outcomes of,
Right. Yeah, I
Animals
just
that we-
wanted to be sure I understood. And those that you put down come through your own decisions and some from the court saying you got to put this animal down?
occasionally from the courts.
But that's a
Um,
small number?
If it's I couldn't even give you a number on that. It's very infrequent. But typically if an animal bites a person, then that animal will be put down. So it's an automatic pretty much in our philosophy. So many animals, it's usually been hit by a car, or owners will bring them in and have them put down for various reasons. For, sickness, they've been sick for a long time, just old. But yeah, we don't put down animals, like I said, just to make space or because
Yeah.
we don't like them.
Will we see a breakdown of the type of animal that gets put down?
It's
Like-
dogs and cats.
No horses, cows?
We have not put down any horses or
Okay.
cows, no.
And of the dogs and cats, I assume it's majority dogs?
The majority is probably dogs. I don't have those numbers.
Right.
But it's, the majority, I would say.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. All right, if we can go a couple, there we go. So you can see, and you can look at across the board here and see just the activity that we have. We currently have 4 officers, animal control officers, which is not enough. We need to have more. Our phones ring constantly. We have several issues with animal control. that I'm investigating and trying to figure out solutions to. One is our animal control officers don't have radios. So they can't communicate with law enforcement via radios. We can't afford them. We don't have that kind of money. They're not in the computer database. So right now, our officers are authorized to write citations to people who are violating a leash law, or they're an animal that's not licensed in the city limits, things like that, or if there's an animal bite or something. But we do that with paper tickets, and all of the law enforcement agencies have gone digital. So now getting those ticket books is becoming problematic. So the city of Kelso, for example, we've been waiting and waiting to get ticket books for our officers because they don't buy them anymore. We would go, typically in the past, we would go to each jurisdiction and get ticket books from them to provide the services. But now they don't have ticket books. So
How are we doing here?
I'm sorry?
How's the county doing? Are we supplying you? the
Yes,
tick-
we have some from the county right now. And the county's always been able to get them for us. Kelso had to order some more, so we've been waiting for Kelso's to come in. They just came in the other day, so it depends on each jurisdiction. But that's one of the obstacles that we're dealing with right now with animal control, is just bringing them up to speed with the rest of the law enforcement community, because they really are a law enforcement function. They're enforcing the laws of through the RCW and the municipal codes of each and the county codes. And so it's important that we get them up to speed with regular law enforcement. So if we can go to the next slide.
And you're probably gonna, oh, yeah, you're covered.
So here's a kind of give you an idea on how animal control services are conducted around the state. I went through and I checked with each county, and what you're seeing here is obviously the sheriff's office has the majority of responsibilities. There's three shelters in the state of Washington that essentially are doing animal control services, and we are one of them. So in order for us to keep up, we have to make some difficult decisions in the future, which it's going to increase our costs. But that's something we're going to explore down the road, and we'll work with the local jurisdictions on that and determine which way we want to go with animal control services in the future. So if I can go to the next slide, unless you have any questions about that. So an important thing to understand with our contract and what our services are is that we're more than just animal control. We're providing a sanctuary for animals while they're kind of in transition into a new home. So since 1973, we've found new homes for about 63,000 animals. And we've returned another 28,000 lost pets to their owners. We've also, what's not up there is another 11 to 14,000 animals that have been transferred to other shelters and other locations in order for them to have the opportunity to be adopted out by other means. One of our programs that we're offering right now is the Community Cat Program. This is a pilot program that we began last year, and the purpose of it is to spay and neuter feral cats, because the feral cat populations are just exploding everywhere. And it's not just here locally, it's nationally. This is a big issue. And last year we spayed and neutered 556 cats, and 304 of those were females. And you can see I put a little snippet in there about how cats can bloom when left unchecked. So it's important, this spay and neutering program, to keep these cat populations down, because it helps to control disease as well as the populations that become quite intrusive. Did you have a question?
Yeah, what I'm trying to figure out how to reconcile the number. You put more dogs down than cats. My guess is there are many more feral cats than there are feral dogs.
I don't know of a feral dog problem.
Okay, and so if a healthy cat comes into your facility, you neuter them or spay them. And it's because you don't kill them for space, eventually you have to let them go.
No, that's not how it works. With this program, what's happening is the public is capturing cats in their neighborhoods. They're setting out traps for them. And what they've discovered over the years and through a lot of research is that these cats are living in like packs. And so if we remove one from that population, another one's going to take its place. So what the purpose of this program is to spay and neuter the existing populations. So they obviously, so they can't breed anymore, but that way it doesn't disrupt the family groups that are out there living wild in our neighborhoods. And they just naturally die off, as opposed to disrupting the family group and another one to come in and take its place that's ready to breed and wants to make more babies. We're trying to just keep the population from expanding.
Yeah, no, I think I understood that. I was asking a slightly different question.
Oh, I'm
Is,
sorry.
independent of how you're handling that, which you explained nicely, I would expect that at some point, every resident in your facility is going to be a spayed cat or a neutered cat, and you will be out of space. What do you do then?
We adopt them out. And it's a constant flow. I'll talk about that in just a moment,
Okay.
if you will. I'll explain how the numbers are moving. We also do a low income vaccination clinic. And since 2019 is when that began, but we've vaccinated approximately 814 pets. This occurs usually once a month.
Including for COVID? Oops.
No, they refuse that.
Very good.
So this is really important as well, because it helps to, keep things like parvo and dangerous diseases out of our communities. And it's for the low income. They come in and provide proof of their status, and we're able to do that for them. So it's a great program. And we've had a lot of donations that have helped offset the costs for that. So can we go on to the next slide? So, like I said, we've been contracting with the local jurisdictions since 1974. What you see here is basically a breakdown of our revenue between 2021 and 2022. It's important to note that 59% of our revenue comes from these contracts. And so these contracts are very important to us. And as you can see in 2022, our revenue was about 1.5 million. What I did not include in that, and you see broken out in the bottom right corner, we did have a gift of about $400,000. And we also had a $60,000 grant. And I didn't include those in that total revenue piece because I couldn't consider those revenue since it's a one-time thing. But you can see that our expenses got quite high. Some of that is spending, but I'll break down exactly why our expenses have gotten up so high. But there's another on the left-hand side, you can see there's a breakdown of our revenue. That 59% comes from the contract, 17% comes from fundraising, another 4% from licensing, and 9% from adoptions, and then 9% from special projects. That's like the spay and neuter clinics and things like that that help offset those kind of costs. Do you have any questions about this slide before I move on to explain some of the costs? Okay, can we go on to the next slide, please? So here's a few of our issues. The first is our insurance rates increased 14.6% from 21 to 22. We won't know our 23 rates until June, but that was a pretty sizable increase. Our utilities increased 21% from 21 to 22. And as we all know, minimum wage increased 9% to $15.74 an hour. The majority of our staff is on minimum wage. And so it was a across the board raise for everybody at the Humane Society. We actually have about 25 full-time employees and another 10 part-time employees that come in and help after hours and on weekends. We did add this last year a staff veterinarian, which is very important. That's what's helping us do these spay and neuter programs. And the veterinarian has added, obviously, a sizable increase into our payroll. But the value of the veterinarian is very important because we don't have to contract out now, and it's difficult to find a veterinarian. There's a very large veterinarian shortage right now. And so we're very fortunate to have one on staff that helps to expedite things and check animals as they come in. And when we do the vaccination clinics, part of that clinic is having an exam for your animal. So when people bring in their animals, our veterinarian goes, checks out how healthy they are and makes any recommendations about nutrition or whatever has to happen for that animal prior to giving any vaccinations. Our daily care of animals increased a lot. And that is, the number is deceiving because it really is because of the number of animals we've had in our facility. The numbers during COVID went way down because everybody was at home and they all wanted a pet. As soon as everybody started going back to work, our numbers started to increase. But it wasn't just us, it's other shelters as well. So we're not alone in that anomaly. And then the cost of vaccinations, which is our veterinary costs, have also gone up by 34%.
Lots of questions.
Okay, go ahead.
In reverse order, the cost of vaccinations, that's not double counting the vet's time. That's just going to the store and buying the
That is
material.
our cost for vaccinations.
Or the material. The
Yes,
material cost.
yes.
Okay, and daily care for animals, it'd be more helpful for me to understand the big picture, which if it were on a per species cost, and then you can give, this species population went up 80% and this one 20%, something like that.
We don't break it down that way. So I couldn't tell you that way. The main cost there is personnel. It's man hours of having to care for the animals.
Okay. So, yeah, it's just easier to understand it. Like if you had put in, we had to increase staff by one person and or something like that, just because I don't know what the 107%.
I understand. And I after I did this last night for the city of Kelso, I realized that number is probably not a very accurate representation of what that is, but it really is. The man hour costs is what it is more than
Okay,
anything
good.
else. And then
Okay.
dog food and things like that.
And veterinarian services, I don't pretend that it should be this way, but do vets give you pro bono time?
No,
They won't even think about it.
no.
Wow.
That's why we needed a staff veterinarian. We would contract with local veterinarians prior to this.
Oh,
And
yeah.
So we were paying their rates in order to do our mission, which was rather costly. So if you look at this next slide that's up on the screen right now, these numbers came out as of Sunday. In February, the pet products and services index rose 10.9%. Veterinary services jumped 2 percentage points to 10.3%, and pet food increased 15.2%, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics data. So this kind of goes in line with everything else we do. You'll notice that our contract that we're offering this year is a 10% increase. We had already put that in place prior to this. I just discovered this on Sunday reading the paper. So I was a little surprised. It's like, oh my gosh, that falls right in line with where we are. And another important piece is that in 2022, 4% more animals entered shelters than actually left. And that's where I described how we've been, through the COVID rush, everything went down, but then everything's been coming back up, and it's been hard to get animals out when animals are coming in just as fast.
Do you have a typo on that slide?
Possibly.
CPI declined?
That's what was reported.
Mr. Dahl, does that sound reasonable?
Consumer price index declining,
No, it went up 6% maybe.
probably up 6%, but but that would be more in line with your other raises too. I mean, you wouldn't see the CPI go down and the others go up.
Right. Right,
So
so
it would be more-
It could
that
be.
has to be a mistake.
It
Yeah.
could be.
I had to, just a couple things. The vet, and you mentioned that you contracted that out before with services, so the cost of the vet, is it kind of a wash with the expense that was when the contracted out, or do you?
I think I wasn't
How
here
close?
then, so
Yeah.
I don't know what those numbers were.
I know it was before your time, but.
Right. So I couldn't address that directly and tell you that. One of the issues we had with the contracted services was just getting veterinarians. I mean,
Yeah,
just finding them that would be
Yeah,
able
I
to do
remember
it.
that.
So it wasn't just a wash, it was that we just couldn't find a veterinarian.
Couldn't get
to-
'em,
to
but-
help.
I would, and I don't know if that's an equal,
Right.
but the increase of 140,000 wouldn't be a true 140 because there'd be some expense reduction.
Depending whether that's a fully burdened number or not.
Yeah,
Well, that number is the salary for the veterinarian.
Okay, so it's not fully burdened.
And
Yeah.
what it also is, what you also see is the increase in our veterinary services. So like the vaccinations, we're buying more vaccinations, we're buying more equipment for doing spay and neuter services. So all our clinic costs are increasing as well with more activity that we have that keeping us busy.
There's an advantage because the vets are hard to come by. There's an
Yeah.
advantage if you have your own because Saturday afternoon, you got a problem.
Right.
Who's going to
No,
attend to it?
I
Yeah.
totally agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Well, and we
with
have
that.
emergency veterinarian issues that
With,
come
it-
in.
with
When
that
animals-
approach, I just,
Yeah.
I'm
But
just thinking that a lot of that 140 is probably offset by reduction in expense. That's what would make sense to me.
Yeah. Hey, do we have any program with any vet school around where like a lot of the vet stuff you have to do is going to be fairly mundane? And
Yes.
and you'd be a great training ground for a vet. And so I would expect that you'd get a young vet just fresh out of school or just, internship and fresh out of school. And they stay a year or two, but you're way ahead of the game at that point.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. And it's something I'll definitely look into.
Great.
I had another question for you, and I'm really kind of expecting you're probably not going to be able to answer it, but it came from when the council last night voted. Councilman Harvey obviously is talked to you, and he talked about, and he was sure to say more than once that it was nothing an issue with you. He was very comfortable with you, but prior to you, there was opportunities to control expenses and they didn't do them. So he was kind of critical, and the cities don't usually let us stand up and ask questions. So I was just sitting there, I would ask him, what do you mean? What areas you're talking about? Are you aware of some of these?
What I can tell you is that there's been turnover in the executive director position. And the previous two directors, I can't speak to what they accomplished while they were there. I know I've been working hard to correct a lot of stuff. So we're talking a time frame of 2021, I believe, when the first one came on. And then there was a period of time without any executive director.
Through there?
So there's been big gaps in leadership, gaps in oversight. And so some spending occurred that, needed to be curtailed, which I'm doing now, things like that. So it was, for lack of a better term, it was the tail wagging the dog. The best way to describe it.
Yeah.
Because there was just no direct leadership that was really maintaining the ship. And so that's why I was asked to come on board to help level things out and to bring some much needed leadership and some guidance in going forward.
Can I ask a question on your board? Because I've worked for different boards and I see them act in different ways. Sometimes boards want to be involved in everything. I've seen some boards that want to see every expense line and down the others. And then other boards say their job is more, they take it as more strategic. They hire somebody to run the show and they let them run the show. They just set the strategic direction. What's yours like?
That would be where we are going.
So you get the chance to.
That's where we
make
are
the-
going. So I've been given pretty much the reins and I'm working with them on setting the guidelines on where we're going to go forward and how we can cut our spending as much as we possibly can and to provide a better product, so to speak. Without a
Which is
product.
my preferred option, to
Right.
be honest with you. Okay.
But yeah, they are very much supportive of giving me the ability to make these decisions and go forward. They've struggled to find someone to really do this. They've had to be hands-on in the last couple of years. And as you know, being on boards, that most board members don't want to get too hands-on in these types of things. And so I think going forward, it's going to be a good partnership. And we just added a new board member, so that's good. It's bringing some new life into it, and I'm excited about where we're going.
I'm probably going to jump ahead a little bit on you, but it follows with this conversation. Is Dave Butcher on your board still?
Not Dave Fucher, it's Dave Spurgeon.
Dave Spurgeon.
Yes,
Right,
he is.
thank you. And he does your accounting also?
Correct.
And back probably 2018-ish maybe, before your time, there were some people out of Clark that contacted me and they had nothing good to say about how the conditions were at our Humane Society. Is that an area where when you came on board, you said we have to improve the humane conditions at the Humane Society?
That is a great point. If we can go to the next slide and I can address
We
that.
work as a team.
Yes, our facilities are aged and we have there's a lot of work that needs to be done. This facility was built in I believe the early 1980s, like 1981 or two.
Yeah.
And they're broken down. We have, leaks everywhere. The first thing I did when I came in was made it very clear that cleanliness was number one priority. And that has been on top. Our crews have done an amazing job. Again, this was a leadership issue more than anything, and just guidance on how the expectations of the public and working conditions, just ensuring that people understood that, number one, you're cleaning not only for a clean facility, but you're cleaning to make the home for this animal better. You're doing it to have a cleaner work environment. You're doing it for the public to come in, because when the public comes in, you don't get a second chance at a first impression. And so when they come in, and if it's not up to standards, then we're going to hear about it. And that person is not as likely to come back. So these are things that I've been instilling in the entire staff, and they're working very hard towards it. That said, we are starting a capital campaign, and on the next slide, you'll see a rendering of our facility that we're hoping to build. This is about a 5.
Before that, the presentation is important. I mean, in some sense,
Absolutely,
you're a storefront.
absolutely.
And just to comment on that, when I first came into the county, or sometime thereafter, of course, I went to the Humane Society and wrote them out a check for donation just out of the blue. And I really felt that it was like, oh, okay, you can drop it on the desk there. And it was like not well received, it seemed like. So I said, oh, I guess they got all they need. So I walked out after that and haven't been back since.
Right. And that's what I stress to people, that first impression is critical. And we have to be important that we are aware of that for that exact reason, because we want people to come back. We want people to support us. We do have a lot of community support. We have around 15,000 followers on Facebook. So we have a lot of support, and that's fantastic. But it's important that we do our part to fulfill that obligation. And so it's my number one priority right now, is just straightening out the ship, so to speak. So while I'm on this slide, though, I can show you, this is the rendering that we have right now for our remodel of our current facility. We actually had a land donation out near the Memorial Park Drive, and it's a 5-acre lot, which would be fantastic for us. But the costs involved in building a brand new facility on that lot were around $10 million. So we opted to go with a remodel of our current facility, which would bring our costs down to about 5 million. The costs, hopefully those costs will come down by the time we raise the money to actually do that. We do have about $500,000 so far raised for this project. And I'll be doing a lot of campaigning in the next year or two to help bring that along. If we were able to raise the money to build on the new facility or new lot, that'd be fantastic. If not, we'll sell that lot and use those proceeds towards the construction or the reconstruction of our current facilities.
What kind of timetable are you looking at?
Again, I've been here for
Whenever.
2 months.
Yeah.
So I don't know yet. I'm hoping within the next 5 years to have at least it underway, if not completed.
You see, I'm probably have to be careful how I say things because I am utterly appalled by the construction costs. And when I look at things, it's like we have something that is functioning now. It really needs to be improved. But the step to get to this improvement ends up getting people wildly, we need marble in the bathroom, we need this and that. And you take a look at our building costs, like, you know what we're paying for the 911 building? We is not the county, we is the taxpayer. A little north of $650 a square foot. And I could talk to you all day on that, but this strikes me as like, we could do a lot better there than $5 million. This looks nice, but when I go into a lawyer's office, if it's too fancy, I walk out. They don't need my money. I don't need to spend my money on them. I want someone who's focused on the job, not on the accoutrements.
Right. And that's why we're doing this, is to help facilitate and make our job better and to help our facilities. It'd be a better place for the animals. It'll be a better place for our staff. And for that, again, when we go back to talk about the first impression for the community, lets the community know that we are dedicated to this and we're here for the long term. And we've made it 50 years so far. And so hopefully this facility will take us, I won't say another 50 years because who knows how long it'll actually last. But
Well, I'll be
many
around
years.
to check on you.
Okay, yeah, as will I. Can we go back just one slide, please? So here's just something to give you some perspective on the animal flow through the facility. As of yesterday, we have 263 animals in the shelter. 60 of those are rabbits. 85 are dogs.
I know
7
that.
are puppies.
That flabbergasted me last night too. I'm going 60
72
rabbits.
cats, yep, and 39 kittens. So the rabbits came about from a couple who had adopted a rabbit, then they adopted another rabbit, and oh, by the way, they're boy and girl, and they turned into 20 rabbits, which turned into 40 rabbits. So they were trying to sell them. They thought there'd be a great revenue source. Turns out it didn't work out quite like they had hoped. So they became overwhelmed and the rabbits overtook their house and they were coming in and out the door on their own. It really got to be a bad situation. So they came to us and they surrendered all the rabbits to us. And we've worked with some rabbit rescue organizations, but right when this happened for us, Tacoma was hit with 260 rabbits in a hoarding situation that they took in. So Tacoma has been working hard to move those rabbits. And I asked them, well, heck, we got 60. Could you just blend them in with yours? And they didn't like that idea. And so we still have 60 rabbits. We started with 70. We've adopted several out. And then we had a surprise batch of babies pop up, which was one that came in pregnant that we didn't know was pregnant. So and they're all in a conference room because we don't have room for them. So we're trying to get these out as quickly as we can. But you can see here, if you look at our January numbers, we moved 113 animals, 30 dogs and puppies and 83 cats and kittens. And then in February, 109 were adopted, 37 dogs and puppies and 70 cats and 2 rabbits. So you can see that we have 260 animals right now. And in the last 2 months, we moved 200 animals. Next month, we'll have 260 animals and we will have moved another 200 animals. So it's a constant flow. This number is never the same and it changes daily.
So, the rabbit discussions always, I can't help myself sometimes. My dad had a rabbit once. I came home, he had a rabbit and I asked him what his name was. He said, Rabbit Ely. And then you heard of the fence that splits Australia in half? There's a rabbit fence that goes north to south because they had a tremendous problem and that was
Right.
one way they tried to isolate that. You've heard about that? You folks should look it up. It's a riot.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. But I do have a question. Some of the how do you work with some of the private adoption agencies?
The private adoption
Or
agencies?
private adoption, like, you're not the only group of people that's formed a club, if you will,
Right.
to help strays and adopt them out.
So we do have a network that we work with. Southwest Humane Society out of Vancouver. There's one in the Gorge that we work with and us, and we will move animals in between. Oregon Humane came up last week or 2 weeks ago, and they took 30 animals to their shelter. So we do work with other shelters. The problem is all these other shelters are full as well. And so we're having troubles shuffling animals between the shelters because sometimes you have an animal that just, we can't
Right,
adopt
right.
them out.
Those are official shelters. There are, I know because I've worked with some of them just in past that are just people that are avid animal lovers and they take up some of your slack.
Are you maybe like fostering? Is that what you're referring to?
I trying to remember the name and that one doesn't ring a bell.
Well, because we do foster animals out with people who are concerned. They'll come in, they'll take several animals and just,
That's
and
my
keep
next
them.
question. Oh, fostering. Yeah, I
Yes.
didn't hear that properly.
yes, we do that with several. We have a lot of people, volunteers that will come forward and say, hey, I'll take 4 or 5 rabbits. And we have a lot of our rabbits are in foster homes right now. A lot of our cats go into a foster program, especially if it's like a pregnant cat or a cat that just had kittens. We'll send those to a foster and let them live in a home while they're waiting for adoption.
Do you do any checking on someone who wants to adopt an animal?
We don't have time.
Yeah, I didn't think you did. I know some of the groups I'm talking about, they make you fill out an application and it's
As we do.
yeah,
Yeah, we fill out they have to fill out an application. We have-
extensive though. They ask and you basically have to prove that that you love animals.
Right. And we do that as well. It's important because we just don't want to give out these animals to people.
You
who are
don't want to
gonna-
get them back
Yeah.
in worse shape than you let them out.
Right, right. So yeah, that is an ongoing issue.
I'm being flip here, but there is a area that you probably don't want to foster any rabbits because I know a guy with a feral cat that has a special affinity for rabbits. He called me within the first 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, that's the one thing. Those are the one pets that are, some people eat them.
these are not your typical domestic rabbit. I mean, these are small. They're
Oh.
called lion head rabbits. So they're more of a designer rabbit. They're not very big. And they've got just big fluffy manes around their head. Not all of them. Some of them are regular rabbits, but the majority of them are these like a designer rabbit, so to speak. So it's not agriculturally based.
Yeah.
So Commissioner Dahl will check and see if they're acceptable for the cat that he has in
Well,
mind.
I'll touch on the story just a hair. It came
Oh.
with 2 weeks here because the place he stayed instituted a leash law for his cats. And he was concerned about it. And he said, my cat's feral. And he says, we have rabbits around here that run without a leash. He said, of course, my cat took care of the rabbits. So I'm just saying there's.
That's all I have. Essentially, thank you for allowing me to come in and talk today. I was just hoping to give you some an understanding of where we are and where we're going. I've got a lot of plans. It's going to take me a little time to get them all up to speed. I'll be relooking at, so this is a 1-year contract that we're sending forward. That's because I need time to really look at the contract and how we're set up, and there'll be changes in the way we do it going forward, more than likely. So I want to explore a lot of different things. We have some educational programs we're going to start putting together, a lot of good things for the community, and yeah, hopefully we can get your support and get our contract going, because we are kind of late in the game. And again, that was because of the lack of a executive director, and we just didn't have anybody. And then it was rather difficult finding out who at the county was actually doing contract negotiations. So once I got,
I'll forward the draft agreement to
Okay.
the commissioners after this
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah,
quick-
I like that you're handling all this. Question on the radios, that seems like, how would a control officer use the radio? Just an example.
oh, well, so we have right now, when a situation occurs with an animal, just like with the police department or the sheriff's office, dispatch will call our office and say, we have an animal running down the road on BB
And so
Road
forth,
or wherever it
something.
is, and they dispatch our person. Well, within our office then, that person who answered the phone then has to pick up a cell phone and try to find our animal control officer, because we don't have radios. So it becomes
but-
cell phone tag. They don't, this is what I inherited. So if they had the radios, the dispatcher could then dispatch the animal control officer directly to the scene. And then while they're en route and on scene, they can communicate with the other officers that are there that actually called them out in the first place, which we can't do right now. If we were to get into the system, then we would have to pay the 911 fees in order to do that, and we can't afford that.
Yeah, I see that, but there's a little glibness there that it seems glib to me. With a cell phone, my wife and kids grab a hold of me anytime, any place. And I think what you're addressing is you just want to push the talk feature.
No. Cell phones don't work everywhere. When we go out, we had one of my officers who's 27
So
years old.
you want to be on the Leo network in some form.
When they dispatch us to those areas where we don't have cell coverage, then it would be nice that our officers could communicate with somebody, because they can't right now.
Okay, in addition to just buying the hardware, what kind of other encumbrance would that imply?
If we were to continue with writing tickets, paper tickets, when everybody else has gone digital, that would need to get into sector. And the same system that the sheriff's office uses, that Longview Police, every other police agency uses. Animal control is a law enforcement function.
Wait, I missed something. I'm trying to be really narrow.
Oh, I'm
I'm trying to
sorry.
figure out, how are you going to use the radios, and say we coughed up the money to provide you those today? What else does that entail that we would be signing up for? In other words, do you have to pay membership into something else, or will the sheriff just?
Oh, no,
let you-
not just to use radios, no. If we could just have radios, but we need permission to use the repeaters. The repeater
Correct,
system.
that's kind of, and
So,
you
no,
can
it
get
would
that
just
from the
be
sheriff.
hardware. It would be our expense.
And then we, not that long ago, spent a fair chunk of money giving people radios. People means some fire departments, but primarily the sheriff's department, all new hardware. The old hardware probably still would work for you, right?
Yes, and I've spoke with the sheriff about that, and he was looking into it.
Oh, okay, all right.
So we're hoping to get some of those radios. That would be a perfect scenario. Because we don't need to go buy the top of the line stuff. We just need our people to communicate. And that's all I really want them to do right now. Because we have to train them how to use them, how to speak on the radio, all that kind of thing. But down the road, when we can no longer get paper tickets, we're gonna have.
That's a
to be on
different
that network.
story.
So that's gonna have to be a conversation about getting into the 911 system. But right now, today, that's not our issue. But radios, just the equipment itself is what we need, and permissions.
I'm really more concerned about the efficiency, yes, by the way, since you're out there, stop by and do something else. That's fine, but I'm also concerned about your officers.
Yeah.
Sometimes an animal problem reflects a human problem and humans can do
Yeah.
some nasty things.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And we've had a situation where one of my officers, who's, I was just alluding to, is 25 years old, goes to a scene where there was a traffic accident or something, a dog in the car. But when all the officers on the scene were done and they cleared the scene and left, and then my animal control officer was the only one there. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, way up Lewis River Road with
Mm.
no cell coverage, and she was there by herself. And so that's where my concern is her safety
Mhm.
at 2 o'clock in the morning. And she needs to be able to communicate with the communication center so they know where she is. And if something was to happen to her, the radios would be that link to help rescue or do whatever. has to
And
be
at
done.
some point, I would look forward to her having a body cam. so that-
Absolutely. If we
and-
could get to that point, that would be fantastic.
Preferably a live feed, so you can actually see what's going on. I mean, yeah,
Well, then we'll have
When-
production companies.
when
and-
bad things happen, they happen fast.
Yeah.
They do, they
Yeah.
do. So it's a safety feature and it's also an efficiency
Okay,
feature.
The sheriff give me any time frame on?
I haven't had a chance to get back with him yet,
Okay.
and he told me he was gonna bring up animal control to the 911 board and discuss how we can get some help.
Okay,
but for immediate help, we don't need 911 board help. You just need to access the transponders or.
Yeah, we just need the permissions and the equipment.
And he's got them, the sheriff has them all in his hand.
Well, I don't know what he has, but
He's got to have a lot.
I think he does. I don't know if they were already displaced somewhere because they'll sometimes trade those in.
We haven't surplus those, I don't think.
A lot of times we'll take them from older vehicle to a newer vehicle, and sometimes we do replace them. So I think we have some in the warehouse now, some older items that might work.
Yeah.
But I think there's sheriff's possessions that get the green light from the sheriff's office.
So yeah, between a portable to carry and then one that's in their vehicle, that'd be the perfect scenario. So I'll continue that conversation with the sheriff. He's
Good.
more than happy to talk about that.
Do you need an introduction to him?
I've met him once before.
okay, perfect,
We've chatted a few times.
good. Okay,
Let me,
Thanks
let
for
me
coming
check, let me check and see if there are any hands up. I don't see any hands. No one from the audience here. We're good.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And
bye.
Thanks, Darren.
until next time.
And Michelson just, okay,
I apologize.
Well, I think it's-
No, why don't you take advantage of it now? Come on up and grab the staff chair. It'll make you feel important. Or is it with or without oh, never mind.
So we talked about the veterinarian, and I guess that's what my main concern is. We're showing numbers that are increasing, but you stated that you had paid independent contract and veterinarian services, and you didn't state how much that was, what the difference between those prices are. Also, is the cost of housing the pets, animals, higher because we're holding them longer? And then you also, I feel maybe double dipped in your presentation with staff increase costs and the cost of taking care of the pets with the staff. So I feel there might have been a little double dipping there.
And that's what I explained, that number, it
Sure.
isn't entirely accurate. But the first part of your question
The
there?
veterinarian, how much did you pay out before
Yes.
in services and how much that employee?
Again,
cost?
that was before my time, so I don't have that right now. The veterinarian came on board July, I believe, of last year. So it's been pretty new. She still hasn't been here for a year. But that's a very valid question that I don't have an answer for.
Those are just my questions. Thank you.
Okay.
On that note, Darren, could you provide us 2023 budget? You have 21 and 22 revenues and expenses, but I'm sure you guys got a budget put together for this year.
For this year?
Yeah.
I'm still working on this year's budget
Okay.
because it wasn't completed. So that's what my goal is to have it completed at least for the second half of the year. But I'm working my way through that as we speak.
You've been on board 2 months and have to give presentations to all the entities.
Right. See,
You're-
what the most important piece of
you're-
this
you're
was that
drinking
get
through a fire hose.
these
too.
contracts signed because they've been
Yeah.
sitting open. And so
Yeah.
I've had to just immerse myself in all these financials and try
Yeah.
to grasp what's been going on for the last 50 years in a month. And so it's been a challenge. And so
So
there might be
Mike,
holes.
Mike, you'll be showing us the actual request.
Correct, yeah. I think we do that next week, and with contract negotiations, I think it might have to be done in executive session, so I'll work with Doug Jensen on that.
Okay,
Okay.
and roughly speaking, it was a 10% increase, you said?
Yes.
10%,
I beg your pardon?
about 10%.
Yeah, and can you refresh my memory of what we spent last?
It was $330,000, be more
Yeah,
like
okay.
360
363.
this year.
Okay,
All right. Anything further?
yeah, I want, that building facility that you're trying to, or that fund, how are you managing that, advertising that? Are you taking 1% of you're not doing anything, just hoping you get donations?
No, we're going to be launching a whole capital campaign to raise these monies. So there's going to be a lot of fundraisers. There's going to be, we're having a fundraiser in August or September. September. And that part of the proceeds from that will go towards the new funds, to the capital improvement funds. So it's going to be a designated campaign just for that. We have a designated fund set aside for this. So it's not like we're taking money that we're getting from the contract.
Right.
To go into that. No,
That's
this is all
exactly the question.
donation based and it's all separated from the rest of the money.
Not to put you on the spot, but without a full 2023 budget in place, how'd you come up with the 10% increase? Is this from years past?
From the
or-
2022 numbers. It was based on what was happening in 2022,
Just to try to get caught up?
right?
I mean, when do you think you'll have that budget done for 2023?
As soon as I can,
A month?
hopefully
Okay.
within the next
Thank
month, yes.
So let me see if I understand the impetus to your question. So you've got 2022 costs. And you've got changes you want to make, but for a baseline right now, because you don't have any other choice, you're taking the 2022 costs and escalating that based on the CPI and other expenses you see coming up. And you're saying this is how I plan to proceed. By the end of 2023-ish, you probably will have a far better understanding of a lot more stuff. And you probably have improvement plans, and the 10% is your guess. You could be 5% high, very unlikely. You could be 5% too low, quite likely is my guess.
This number
Did
came
you-
from our accountant. This wasn't my number. I'm trying to support the number is what I'm doing.
But that was kind of what you were asking. is
Yes, and-
how did you decide on
You
that?
get there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right, and that's why I'm hoping to have that nailed more definitively as soon as I can get this budget finalized.
Yeah.
It's not far off from last year's budget. It's just that, and that's what it was based on. And I can tell you it'll be low. It's going to be, because there's a lot of substantial costs, but I have to, again, I've got so much minutia to go through and decipher. Again, I don't want to talk bad about previous directors, but I've got a lot of cleaning up to do.
And I believe I heard you say that's why you stuck to 1 year here, because
Right,
you get a better handle what's going on and then
right.
give more accurate figures.
Yeah, I would prefer to have a multi-year contract. I don't like one-year contracts at all.
Yeah,
But in this case, we have this, we
Yeah.
can't go further than 1 year until we get everything in place.
and you've probably already thought of this, but when you start fundraising for those buildings, you know, private enterprise, where I came from, we actually budget a donation amount and then for things like this in the community. So don't forget about private enterprise when you're out there. They'll help you with.
That'll be one of my
building
main
stuff too.
targets
Yeah,
during the capital
Yeah.
campaign. I'll be going to different businesses and financial institutions and trying to elicit the funds that we need to make that happen.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's it. You're
Thanks,
leaving
Mike.
us?
I'm excuse myself.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Kim Hort, IT Director. I don't get to talk to you in the afternoon, so happy afternoon on a sunshine day. As we are trying to improve our processes and streamline, there's been discussions about digital signatures and, leveraging the technology that we have. Laserfish has been one of the platforms of using digital signatures and kind of identifying what are the benefits of Laserfish signatures versus digital signatures and the pros and cons, and comparing that to the validity of platforms like DocuSign. We found Patty Carroll was the one that did a lot of the legwork of identifying the difference between DocuSign versus Laserfish. Laserfish, we can validate signatures by users and participant licenses, but how do we go to our community? And, we're not going to, take our licensing out to the public. So DocuSign is a platform that provides additional certificates and credentialing to authenticate user signatures. So as we're starting that conversation, we didn't want to go in cold. So your staff had conducted a interest survey to see who would benefit or be interested. And I don't know, Kelly, if you have that available, or I can just read some of the numbers.
I have it on my end and I can share it.
If you want to, it's colorful because it was a SurveyMonkey presentation, but the feedback that we got, we actually had quite a few departments. So this is kind of a color wheel of identifying who submitted. We had a lot of respondents from like the sheriff's office and the assessors and like public services. Of those, about 77% said that they would benefit and use a platform such as DocuSign or digital signatures. And then out of the people that responded, some said that they would use it daily, weekly, or just monthly, predominantly daily with a 43% usage. So this chart doesn't depict necessarily who responded in that way. So I don't know the answer of a particular department's saying that they would use it daily versus monthly. I don't have
The
that.
reason you're presenting this to us is because,
The business need for a policy addressing digital signatures. So what I have a draft of for you guys is our IT digital signature policy, just to be proactive in addressing the business need that's coming down the pipeline.
right, I'm trying to understand. So in the universe of the county, we've got basically groups of elected,
Mhm.
and we can speak for the people that report to us in the board, not for the electeds of other boards. If we do a good enough job and we show the attractiveness of DocuSign, say, they will probably be happy that we're doing the legwork and they'll just climb on it. So within the, I guess I'll just throw it out. I'm convinced DocuSign is the right thing to do, and I would ask one of my colleagues or both of them to join me and just say, that's what the people in our line organization would be required to do. Required is, you know, I have to always worry about that. But when you give me a breakdown of who would use it or not, I'm like, I think you're showing me this to say how you estimated the costs for DocuSign, not to tell me whether my staff wants it or not.
Maybe both. The reason why we wanted to do this is because we wanted to make sure that IT, we've had departments such as yours come to us saying, can't we automate this? We have signatures on paper going around from office to office. Is there a way that we can make this more efficient? And the answer is yes. We have workflows through Laserfish. And then that stemmed the conversation of like, well, what's the difference between a Laserfish electronic signature versus a DocuSign? And so it just started this conversation, and we worked with Doug Jensen to make sure that we were proactive in getting a policy, which is really the main reason why I'm workshopping that. But to support why we're going out and making it more official is that there is a business need, and we wanted to understand the picture.
I worked in the DocuSign world. You don't have to sell the business need to me. I'm on board.
Right, right. And I'm being maybe too attentive on this, is that I really want to get to the meat and potatoes of it. And this part of it is not as interesting. I think at some point someone has to say, we are going to do DocuSign, or we're going to look at DocuSign, and we think it'll give us these efficiencies at this price cost.
Mhm.
The specific breakdown is going to be less important. I actually have a lot of trust in what you've done and others have done in investigating this groundwork ahead of time. It would be terrible if we said we're going to do it and everybody said, hell no, you forgot about this and that. But you've done all that. So I'm not worried at all.
Well, that's a relief.
Yeah.
I was pleased with the feedback and stuff. So moving on from the pretty
Very
pie
good.
charts. I wanted to present in this workshop policy. I believe it was Benton County that Doug Jensen pulled this one from, and Kelly and Patty Caro did a lot of work kind of reworking it and tailoring it to, from a technical and a business need. And then, of course, I read through it and signed off on it. So I wanted to go over the main fact that we need to establish a digital electronic signature policy under IT. So that's what I'm presenting.
Mhm.
And I do have some ballpark costs if you're interested in diving into that.
Oh, here we go, yeah. You're talking about this guy. Yeah. Everybody saw that, right?
Yeah.
It,
If you want, you can squint, you can see it.
Over time on our even little things, it just saves so much time in what we did in labor. I mean, I was telling Kelly, we had a person walk into, you can do this in Oregon. In Washington, you still have to, for whatever reason, have to have a wet signature on the title, but in Oregon, they'll accept electronic signature. So people that went into Astoria, Ford, or one of the places down there and decided to want a car and they wanted to do us direct. So we had them done in 20 minutes. We just DocuSigned them the stuff. They grabbed a cup of coffee and did it on their phone and done.
yeah, I'm trying to put myself in the position of someone in the public, and I would think that they would embrace this wholeheartedly with one reservation is, how do you know it's not fraudulent? And what happens after that if it is determined to be fraudulent? So why is this less? At some point, you'll address the fraud aspect of it and why this is secure.
There's always a risk of fraud. Email is one of our weakest points as a user of the internet. So yes, people can fraudulently make things look like a DocuSign email. The technology behind it, I'm not an expert on, but I know that they use like certificates to validate
Yeah.
who the user is. There's specific points
You
of,
can actually custom make how secure you want it to be.
Mhm.
I think we had different levels. If it was an internal document versus us sending it out
Yeah.
to a member, I think there was different things when they signed into DocuSign that they had to do that only they should know to verify them.
Right, there's like multi-factor authentication with technology
I
nowadays.
think this is the public key crypto kind of thing.
Mhm.
And that assures that that my signature actually came from my email address. If I give my email password to somebody else,
Yeah,
I got troubles.
yeah,
But as long as that's secure, I think the signature is quite secure. So I'm not afraid of it, but I think the public should be told that it's quite secure.
I don't recall us ever having a fraud issue, but you know, that's no guarantee you're not gonna have.
It's going to be difficult because with the public key crypto, I've got one password and the world has another password, and they have to use, they know my public password and my private password is here. I generate with my private password, they decode with the public. And if it doesn't decode, well, it didn't come from me.
Yeah,
So even though it appears like a strange signature, like I got this, I'm gonna look for a nice stylized signature.
I know it.
And if they copy it, doesn't do them any bit of good because behind it is this public.
I could actually pick a signature people could read.
Mhm.
Correct, yeah.
So again, backing up before we dive into a technology, the policy was written in a general term. So the intention is to go with a platform such as DocuSign that is reputable, well-known, and secure. So I didn't know if you had any questions in regards to the context of the policy.
I have read the policy and I have read the resolution, and I didn't find any problem with it.
Yeah, I don't either.
I thought it addressed everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. We'll move forward on getting that. And then did you have any questions in regards to the pricing? It is dated, but it's kind of a ballpark of how we can integrate that with our Laserfish form workflow.
Yeah, so the hidden cost is going to be the development
Mhm.
of it. Do you have an estimate of when and how much?
I don't have a current estimate. I don't know, Kelly, if you want to bring that estimate back up. These are numbers from 2020 and CDI is our Laserfish partner. They're the ones that have developed ours. And
Okay,
so within that, there is projected cost for seats. And based off the number of seats, there's so many envelopes that you can have per user. I am not an expert again on the DocuSign licensing,
Yeah.
but we can definitely readdress what's the best strategy of user versus just packet count.
Yeah,
But to integrate that, there's a one-time cost with the Laserfish side of things. And again, this is dated numbers. It's around $2,000. And then with additional hours, there's 20 hours listed again. You know, it's just kind of getting that technical assistance for IT team to have the experts that know how to deploy this product. And then the $400 is like a reoccurring annual maintenance because they make sure that the security and the code that connects Laserfish and DocuSign together is secure and up to date. So essentially technical backend software maintenance.
yeah.
So there is an upfront cost, but
and there's a cost per use then.
it depends on if we want to go with users or packets. And so you can have so many documents in a packet. And again, why we were trying to do a little bit of legwork to see what the business interests and needs were in that survey was to see what would be the most strategic way to go. Would it be license or packets?
For us, yeah.
So I don't have that answer yet.
Yeah, although you've looked at both numbers sort of, and you can switch back and forth at the end of a year or something like that.
Yeah, especially as people get wind of it in the county and find business process for it.
Yeah. Okay, so just for the public that may be listening, the one-time cost is gonna be somewhere, if it were 2020, it would be it'd be $9,000, and we're in 2023, let's say it's gonna go up half again as much, so we're looking at, let's call it 15,000. I'd like to bracket things
Mhm.
by under promising, saying, I promise you it's gonna be this expensive, and it's only that much, great. Okay, then the other issues, I know you've looked at approximately what the costs might be to implement under one model based on the number of signatures. Like, can you talk to us just a little bit about that?
In regards
maybe-
to the difference of the signatures or where it would be
No,
used
like,
or?
the board signs probably 40 individual documents a week, I'm just guessing. Maybe 50. And so you can add up how many documents we would want to
Mhm.
use, and that gives you a number. So maybe an easier way to say, right now, the signature that we sign doesn't cost you anything until that paper has to be bought, the ink has to be bought, it has to be packaged, put in boxes and mailed to Olympia, has to be scanned possibly. And you start adding those costs up, and I'm trying to compare the cost of DocuSign to that. And of course, it's much less error prone also if you do this, and that's worth something.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking off the top of my head, it's very efficient to do DocuSign compared to total cost. But if you told me every signature is going to be $23.95, I'd say, that probably isn't going to work.
So I do think that we still need to go and kind of pull the numbers out to get a stronger estimate of cost. The discussion mainly was just to get the policy workshopped.
Maybe my eyes don't work very well.
I'm
I
trying to
haven't
remember
either.
what they charged us on, and
I mean,
I'm trying to remember what they
Yeah,
charged
that would
us,
be
but I'm
helpful, yeah.
racking my brain.
So my experience with DocuSign is it's per envelope, so it wouldn't matter how many times you need to sign or initial, it's what document you have in there and that's what you would send.
So for our circumstances, you vision it's just so vastly less expensive that it's hardly it's almost pointless to try to compute it because it's so obvious.
Yeah, I think we can work around to make it very beneficial for us to go that way.
Yeah. Again, I wouldn't want us to sign up for something we like that would cost tens of thousands of dollars a month. And that's really what
Right.
I know it doesn't, but if I were in the public, I'd be like, oh yeah, is this like every other government project?
Yeah. I get it.
I am trying to be mindful of that, not to bring up another platform, kind of the recourse of COVID. We needed to find a solution for virtual meetings, so everybody was signing up for Zoom. And so things like this DocuSign and Zoom platforms, I'm trying to get them synced under one account, essentially with multiple users, so then we can take advantage of enterprise funding. And then there's also grant opportunities that sometimes cover these kind of costs.
So you're happy with both the resolution and the
Yeah. Yeah.
and the and the code change? The policy.
Mhm.
Yeah. The policy's all been run through legal.
It has, Doug Jensen proposed the template. We can run it by him one more time because there's a couple of things in regards to like the judges that I want to make sure we get clarification on because they do have different
Okay.
jurisdictions. So I want to make sure that that's,
So we should expect to see this.
I would say maybe not this well. Yeah. What Kelly's saying, she's giving me a couple weeks out. But it's dependent on
Couple
legal.
weeks.
A
for-
couple weeks out, the
Okay,
beginning of
so
April.
at that time, we're not going to be doing any contract with CDI. or
No, this
anything
is just
like
the
that.
policy.
Just the policy and the resolution adopting the policy.
Correct.
That gives us stability. If we do want to do a contract at some point in time, then we can.
Yes.
Right. So for the public, this is just adding flexibility.
Correct. Any further questions? Any citizen comments or
No,
high fives? We're good?
Well, comments, I really appreciate the staff that goes forward and says, what you're doing now can be vastly improved.
And we have a
Actually-
lot of great people.
Yeah, and that takes, our clerk has been excellent. That actually maybe Kelly could just take a moment and tell us what you have to do with the papers the stack of papers you get every board meeting.
Yeah, the papers are in our office from each department when they submit an agenda item. So they are printing them, they are sending them to us in our office. Then we get them, we usually make a copy of it. And then we have it here for you to sign after the meeting. And then at that point, we're scanning it all back in. So it's kind of like going from electric digital copy printed out for you to sign to then just put back in to digital. And then I feel like there's a lot of moments that errors can happen or things can get lost. And then it's also in our office back to the department. So.
And
it's
you just shipped out 3 boxes worth of,
I think it was more than that. Bailey is the one who put that together. She might be able to explain the process about having to send them to the state archives.
and then I believe in the state, they will scan it.
I'm not sure about the process of that, but I know we had to do we had to fill out labels and it had to be boxed
Yeah.
a certain way. And then they actually had to drive down here to get them.
It should horrify the public.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Where are we? Oh, here we are. Thank you. Miscellaneous. You have miscellaneous? Come on up. Sort of on the dark side over there, so if you just hold your hand and don't hold it up there, I'll miss it.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So we are in the
I
middle,
am Kim Bocut.
Kim Bocut with the Cowlitz County Event Center. And I'm here today to talk to you about a project that we have ongoing at the event center that has run into a little bit of a snag. So we are replacing the fire suppression system in the indoor arena. This is a grant-funded project. And the bid came to us at $87,756.70. When this was bid, we did not have engineered plans of the engineered drawings of the indoor arena. It was built in 1979 and maintenance does not have those records. Once the contractor moved in this past Monday and they started moving all of their equipment in and took down some of the old some of the old piping, they're putting up Schedule 40 pipe, which is a pretty heavy duty fire suppression pipe. What they are finding is that the support beams in the ceiling will not support. So the current system has been hung with one hanger. And with the weight distribution, they're not comfortable hanging the new pipe the same as the old pipe. So they've determined that they need to hang at each hanging point rather than having one hanger. They need to have 3 hangers to better distribute the weight because we don't have the building, again, we don't have the engineered plans to prove that those beams will hold the Schedule 40 pipe, which brings to me and to you a change order in the amount of $14,949.48. The reason I'm here today is because it is the schedule or the project is happening as we speak. They've been scheduled in our indoor arena for 2 weeks. They brought in specialists to come help with this project. So this is a 17% increase in the contract. And so I'm coming to you today to bring this to your attention and to ask for permission to sign this change order. The grant for the project is actually a total of $134,000. So we're still within our grant funding. However, this is a significant change order that was not anticipated
Yeah.
or foreseen.
But it's still within the grant that you received. It's not out of county.
Yeah, but the whole thing doesn't sound very reasonable to me. For one thing, Schedule 40 pipe is something I can go to Home Depot and buy and put in my ground for sprinklers. Putting 2 more hangers in there, depending on what they are, I guess. It doesn't amount to re-engineering anything. There's something very strange in that request. Engineering wise, I mean.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Schedule 40, so.
Well, if there's piping up there that they're taking down and then they're gonna put new piping in, this is the arena, right?
Correct,
And I think I've been in the arena and looked up and I can see everything. Is that not right?
correct.
Right. Barring something else, I'd hold them to that contract.
Well, the fear is that if it gives way and falls,
No, I understand, but at the very least, or I should say at the very most, I'd want some independent engineer, knowledgeable person to go through there and take a look at it and say that they see the problem and, you know, for $14,000, if there is a problem with something collapsing, you can't buy anything. I mean, beefing up a beam is gonna cost you a chunk of money right off the bat.
Would our engineering area be able to look at that?
I don't know, probably even some of the building guys in the building and planning would be able to look at that and say what is reasonable or unreasonable, because they'll be pretty familiar with the code. So that's probably a good suggestion, I think. I'm really uncomfortable okaying that.
okay?
They have told you if they build it the way they had bid, then the world would fall apart?
If they build it the way they had anticipated, which is hanging it, from what my understanding, I'm not a builder either.
Yeah,
But he called me immediately and he said that he has called his engineer and his engineer told him absolutely not to hang this heavy pipe as is. And so they tried to come up with the solution. And the solution was to then distribute the weight rather than one hanger, from what I'm
Right.
understanding, to 3 hangers just holding this weight. And
yeah.
and so that was his engineer's solution to this problem, because we are literally mid-project. And the arena is completely torn up with, it's used 5 to 6 days a week. So we're holding everything
Yeah.
hostage right now. So when he came to me with this and he told me the solution, and I told him to tell me what this increase would be, this is what he came up with and sent it to me this morning. So that's why I'm,
Yeah.
Everything was in plain view at the time they made the bid, right?
correct. He did ask for the plans for the building. I requested them for maintenance and they were not able to produce
Right,
them. So-
right. So my answer is tell them, they will stick to the contract, perform. And if it fails in some way or another, they're liable. They're the ones that signed the contract. If they think they're going to do something that is not safe, then they better do it safely and better do it within the contract. If you want, I'd go ahead and ask Mike Wilson if he figures he can add any value to the assessment in there.
Okay.
Sound all right to you?
I'll reach out to our building and planning, but at this point, I think I'll tell him to stop the work because I don't feel comfortable moving forward.
Because what, I'm sorry?
I don't feel comfortable moving forward. The way he described this, I don't feel comfortable.
Well, he has no choice. He signed a contract that
Well,
said,
correct. And I'll look through the contract to see exactly what it was that he bid versus what he's proposing to see if it was that specific in the contract. As far as the bid to us, if it was just hanging this pipe or if it was specifically, I don't know if it was one hanger
okay,
versus.
who drew up the requirements or who drew up any of the specifics? Was that you or them?
They assisted with this and purchasing assisted with the bid process of this. And I apologize, I didn't bring all of that because I didn't
You
realize we
thought-
would dig
yeah,
that
yeah. No,
deep
I know.
into it. And this was awarded last November, so we've been putting it off because of scheduling. And then we have a May deadline of completing the
Yeah.
work.
In the meantime, you say the horse arena is out of commission?
Correct, it's full of equipment.
They already took off stuff. They've already begun to do the work?
Correct, they're taking things down and then
Yeah,
replacing as they're taking down.
that even strengthens my case. So you'll talk to them, you'll talk to building and planning?
I'll talk with building and planning
Yeah,
because I don't feel comfortable with them proceeding in the manner that they bid it based on this. As he described yesterday that if he's afraid that if it fails and it falls and kills somebody that he wouldn't sleep at night, which who would, but that was his story, not mine. But as we were talking it through, I said, put this down. I'm not an engineer. I'm not familiar with this. It makes
okay,
sense to me as far as supporting it, but I
Yeah,
also didn't expect it to come with a $14,000 price
I'm a
tag.
little uncomfortable as to what it is you're implying. You're not gonna tell them to do a safe job and do a job that they signed up for?
No, I'm absolutely going to tell them to do it safely, but if he's unable to do it safely, which is what he told me, then I don't want them to.
I
do it.
don't, I'm trying to make sense of it because they hang them by hangers. So is he worried about his one hanger gonna fail? Well, he should have known that with the pipe.
No, he's afraid that the
He's
beam
afraid
is
the whole
not strong enough to
beam's gonna
put
come
all the
down?
weight on the beam. Correct. He's afraid of the collapse of the beam because he's not sure what the weight rating is on that building because we don't have the engineered plans for the beams in the building. That that is supporting the weight.
Supports the roof.
Right.
I tell you, if a Schedule 40 pipe is gonna bring the roof down, you better just bulldoze the building down. No, I'm serious. This is ridiculous what he's offering you. So if you want, I'll come down and meet with you and them.
That would be great. And I would also, I can stop down at building and planning on my way
Okay,
out. and-
It'd be helpful for me. I'd like one of our building and planning people to look at it and say, no, they either say, yeah, the beams are a little touchy, or no, that should hold this. How big is Series 40 pipe?
well, that's the Schedule 40 is just talking about the wall thickness. So you could have 3/4 inch.
Oh, I got
inch
you.
and a half
Okay.
pipe.
Okay.
And I imagine, I don't know whether it's a high pressure system or a low pressure system. I don't know enough. If it's a high pressure system, the pipe diameter is probably fairly small. So it's probably 2-inch pipe max is my guess.
The pipes are about this big around.
Okay, that's a 4-inch pipe then.
Mhm.
You would probably be a good one to sit with her and talk to them about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they certainly knew what they were gonna use then. And it's,
Yeah, if you're,
mean, I
if
can
you're walking
buy
in there and you're
Schedule
going,
40.
okay, you want Schedule 40, you're gonna hang it from there.
yeah,
Yeah.
Sorry,
Kim.
Kim.
Seems like it should have been known. I don't know.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
The other thing I'm wanted to bring up is I've been keeping up and looking through the email correspondent from David Berger on this opioid settlement.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that the settlement comes down to a region, what they're calling here the Cascade Pacific Action Alliance region, which is Cowlitz, Grays Harbor, Lewis, Mason, Pacific, Thurston, and Wahkiakum.
Would it be helpful if we had him on?
Well, my
not?
thing is, I think we need to have a workshop on this, and because all of these entities have to agree on who's gonna serve as the holder and distributor of these funds. It can't, a county can't have their own,
Right.
and you see, Great Rivers have been mentioned in this. Thurston County has mentioned maybe their department could handle this and save some of the costs. So it feels to me like, and we not only have to agree as a county, but we have two cities that meet a population, Longview and Kelso, that would also have to be on the same page. So this is going to be a lot of coordination. And I think it might be worthwhile. It might be worthwhile to have a workshop with David and on just to explain it. So us as a county can kind of decide how we're going to approach this and what are points that we're saying, no, we don't want to go there, but we'll go here, because we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 counties, plus I don't know how many cities within those counties that would also have to agree. That's a lot of people to agree on who's going to administer those funds.
Trying to remember something. I know I thought a little on that, and it seemed like it. Yeah, I mean,
And to be real frank with you, I didn't know much about this Great River. I know Commissioner Weber sits on that, but I pulled what financial information I could see on them, and I'm not sure they have the wherewithal. I mean, Cowlitz County is looking 3.7, 3.8 themselves.
they already have that.
So when you combine all of these peoples, that's a huge chunk of money, and I would have concerns on how they would minister that and
Yeah,
comply and do all that kind of stuff.
maybe I'd like to pursue that right now if we could get
If you
David.
get David on there.
Yeah. We got the 3.8 million already. That was for the suing of the manufacturer.
Yeah,
Not the suing of
this
the
is for-
distributors,
Distributors, right.
right? And I don't know why they're putting all that in place, but I think it ends up that it will be Cowlitz County dollar, it'll be money for Cowlitz County. I don't know why it has to go through. It reminds me a little bit about why we have to go through the COG, why we have to go through
Yeah.
CEDC, why we have to go through CAP. It's like,
It seems like Washington put a little more oversight requirements is kind of way, well, he could probably explain that to us better, but
yeah. Don't you just love this?
yeah, yeah. And looking through his stuff, it has to be the mechanism, whatever we choose, has to be in place by June. There's a June date. And that stuff comes faster than we think. Especially if you're expecting to get 6 counties and cities.
Okay, so we
To
have until
agree.
June 8th to have everything in place.
Yeah,
Yeah, while I was gone, I got 8 about 8 emails that I haven't yet tackled about sign, and I'm like, what am I
Well,
signing?
I think a lot of those, because it came up, the chair was to execute those documents and then we started getting copies so we could see what was coming in.
David is unavailable this afternoon and Doug asked if you could reschedule it for Monday.
Yeah, what's happening Monday? You've got, oh, so Monday in the afternoon, I've got, let me look at this schedule. I just put something on there. Something went wrong, try again, okay. Oh, come on, this is not right. Okay, here we go, I think. Monday, the 27th. That should be plenty of time for us.
And he's requesting the Monday morning,
Oh, he's requesting
10
Monday
o'clock.
morning?
Monday morning, yeah.
During the
Works for
normal
me.
10 o'clock meeting? That'd be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, we just had experience where we get all the deadlines, such date, you got 2 days to sign this
Yeah.
extension. I don't want to be at that
But
point again.
we definitely need a little more clarity.
Yeah.
It's really bad if,
Well, and plus, when we do this, I want to make sure at a Tuesday meeting or whatever, we can explain so the public understands what we're looking at here and
It
why
looks-
why we're making this decision to do whatever we decide to do.
it looks really bad when we vote for something and we cannot explain it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's embarrassing. Don't say anything out in the audience.
Okay, so Monday, that's
Okay.
what I had on.
Good. I don't have anything else. So I see no hands up. We're good to go. Thank you,
Okay.
everybody. This meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you.